He would look earnestly at someone who is sitting opposite him in a bus or train, and would try to decide what that person's occupation in life was likely to be. He had not the satisfaction of knowing if his diagnosis was ever correct, but he had the mental joy of a secret occupation. The British Museum reading room was an ideal place for such an occupation, as its inhabitants were so pleasantly variegated. Henry adjusted his pince-nez again, anticipating some sport. That tough-looking specimen over there now, what could he be? Confidence man, Henry murmured to himself, unconsciously libelling a university professor who was the world's greatest expert on Lepidoptera. The grey-haired elderly Negro sitting next to him was not a suitable subject for Henry's little game, as it did not need the brains of a Sherlock Holmes to deduce his profession from his clerical collar. On the next chair, however, sitting with his head lolling back in an attitude of complete abandonment, was a specimen of the most remarkable interest. Henry always thought of the subject of his perverted detective genius as a specimen. This man had flaming red hair of the colour known to rude little schoolboys as carroty. He wore a pair of enormous horn-rimmed spectacles, and his chin, though technically clean-shaven, had not been touched by a razor for several days. Yet his clothes, though stained with egg and with the remnants of other meals, were well cut, and had obviously been purchased from a good tailor in the West End of London. And as he lay back, his enormous cavern of a mouth half open, Henry caught a glimpse of gold teeth. Obviously a man of some money, then, though equally obviously caring but little of his appearance. His collar was dirty and his tie askew, so terrifyingly askew that Henry thought it the first time he had ever seen a tie literally worn under the ear. And then, in the sacred precincts of the British Museum reading room, a strange sound smote Henry's ear. What could it be? Surely it couldn't be. Surely it couldn't be. Yes, it was a veritable snore. It was, not to put too fine a point on it, a snore of the most gargantuan proportions, and it was being emitted by the large, red-haired gentleman on whose precise position in society Henry had just been speculating. Henry had summed him up as a nouveau riche, probably a millionaire with a bee in his bonnet, perhaps writing a book to prove that Queen Victoria had written Shakespeare's plays, or something equally crazy. It seemed impossible to connect such an uncouth individual with any sort of interest in abstract knowledge of something like a rational kind. And now this snore. What could be the meaning of it? Henry